All right, friends, welcome. The What's Right Show is on, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash, 702-820-1234. Here in Las Vegas, 800-304-2000. If you're out in California. Now here, I want to say this because, of course, today is January 6th. We're here. The most important day in the annals of Democrat mythology. Can you imagine? And you've got to actually hand it to the Dems. They almost pulled it off. Today is the day where the people that stole an election convinced a country that it was the other side that did just that. That's what today is, right? If somebody comes up to you and says, oh, January 6th, don't ever forget that day, Sam, it was a bloodbath. Okay. There is no question that what we saw was not acceptable. But we do not know yet still why it happened. And when I say why it happened, we still don't know who the masked individuals were going into the Capitol, breaking windows, smashing things, causing acts of vandalism. Many of these people dressed the same way, suspiciously all wearing the same shade of khakis. I know, it was curious, but quickly, the narrative began to evolve, right? Trump started an insurrection. And the whole thing started to stink pretty quickly to those of us paying attention. So here we are, right? And I love the fact that there are people out there, of course they're Democrats, of course maybe they're running for office, midterms coming up, and they're running on this issue, and they're putting it in their messaging. I see it all the time. I get fundraising emails from Democrats too. I sign up for all the lists. I want to see what they're doing, and I get them every day. Today is the day, and particularly right this week, and on January 6th today, I'm getting these emails where people are saying, right, you never forget, right? And I believe that this is the year that I'm hoping, right, that some more clarity will come out on this. Well, look, it was 5 years. We now know that there were, that there was FBI involvement, that there were people that were paid by either directly or indirectly by the FBI to participate that day. And we knew it, by the way, we knew this during the Biden administration. We knew this when Christopher Wray was questioned by Republicans in Congress and asked about government assets, FBI assets. Remember the answers he used to give? Remember how evasive and carefully worded those were? Well, I'm just putting it out there. So, I mean, it's just people are talking about it today. I had to mention it and reflect on it. The hilarious thing, of course, also is that there is real, and I mean real bad stuff happening now across the country for Democrats. I told you this was going to happen with California. You see that there are a number of investigative journalists who are doing the same thing that Nick Shirley did up in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, going to businesses in California, going to daycare centers in California and finding out that there's no kids there. There's one video that's circulating where one of these guys goes up to a completely shuttered business where allegedly funds are going, payments are going for something like a couple hundred kids. And the guy that owns the building and that is somehow tied to this is getting into a brand new Rolls Royce. Of course he is. Now, again, this is America. We don't begrudge anybody success. You just can't steal the money, right? You can't defraud the government. It's not right. Congresswoman Susie Lee today tweeted out that more need to be done in the state of Nevada to make child care more affordable. And she said that child care in Nevada is one of the most expensive. Nevada is one of the most expensive places for child care. Something has to be done. And this is another example of tone deafness, right? We are literally on the cusp of a major dam breaking through across the country where all of these government programs that have pulled on our heartstrings, that have appealed to our more compassionate natures, have been abused at scale by people allied with the Democrats. And you saw Tim Walz gave a press conference today, which I'll get to here after the break, but it was comical, right? He acknowledges, he literally says, well, you know, we got Trump is sending all these people, and he's sending all of these thousands of agents. Remember, I told you about this yesterday. That Trump is sending in the FBI and we have no control over these people. And that's exactly right. The panic is setting in because they no longer can protect this vast criminal enterprise that they've been building over the years. It's starting to seem obvious to me now, Robbie, why the Democrats are on the side of Nicolas Maduro. After all, Nicolas Maduro is a socialist who seized the control of a government to use for criminal purposes that would enrich himself and his family. If that doesn't sound to you like the Democratic Party across this country, I don't know what does. So yeah, what else? I saw it with some other thing. Yep. It won't pull at our heartstrings anymore to say, Sam, we need school lunches. Sam, my goodness, we need child care. Sam, we need more health care, more in-home care for vulnerable adults. All those things are good, I guess, in form and substance, right? But in practice, we understand that these are programs that each will be used to command vast sums of public funds, tax dollars, at a state, local, and certainly at a federal level. And that money's going to end up in the wrong hands. It's going to be abused. I actually sense that there will be a turnaround this coming year. The more of this stuff that comes out, the less generous people want to be. I remember growing up and having conversations about taxes. And one thing you will hear sometimes, you still hear it now, but you hear a lot from Democrats, from liberals, and say, well, tax me. I think taxes are good. Good things are done with them. I want the government doing good things, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And by the way, these arguments will be coming from people who are making decent money and actually are having a significant amount of their revenue, their income taken by the tax collector. It's harder to feel that way, even if you're a principled liberal. It's harder to feel that way when you see that the money's actually going to greedy people and bad people. It's hard to see when you are being taxed for a quote unquote good program, but the guy driving away from an empty building where there are no kids being actually taken care of is leaving the scene in a beautiful $400,000, $500,000 car. That, I think, can get under the skin of even the most hardened anti-Trump leftist. So this is kind of what I'm getting at here. I think, I know there's a lot of people. Dan Bongino today, he quits the FBI and he's back at his show and he's back online and he's back to his old life. And a lot of people are reading the tea leaves on that. What does this mean, right? Was he that disillusioned with Washington? I'm going to get to some of my ideas on that here because I have some thoughts. Love Dan Bongino. And so I'm, but I think people are afraid that Pam Bondi and this DOJ and Kash Patel and the FBI are just not going to get to anything of any importance, and that people are going to be both the instigators behind January 6th and the people that have, defrauded this country. And, and by the way, some of the people that have participated in other, shall we say, acts of political interference against Trump, against Republicans, and against Americans writ large, that they're not going to be held accountable. I still remain optimistic. And I submit here when we come back from the break, as an example or as evidence of my optimism, some of the nervousness that is coming from Democrats. Like Tim Walz dropping out yesterday. I said this. I predict he knows he's going to be indicted. He is certain of it. And that's why he's dropping out. So we'll get to it all. Roll up my sleeves here. Lots to go over. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law on the What's Right Media Network.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, behind the What's Right microphone. When we look at the theft, and it's really not even that. It's an organized fleecing of tax dollars across this country from these, you would say, arguably important government programs. The Democrats keep telling us that these programs are important, so I take them at their word. It really just beggars belief how this was allowed to happen over time. And an important point that needs to be made here, too, is that by enabling this fraud, Democrats have actually hurt the hungry kids out there, the autistic kids, the safety net. You see the autism numbers, or I guess I would say the treatment of autism in Minnesota. I don't have it in front. It went up 1,000%, something insane, right? And it's because the fraudsters found out that they could build the state for autism care, and did it. And whether there were real people there or not, I mean, it just fleeced the whole program. And it's the same thing as with illegal immigration. It's infuriating that Biden, in 4 years, by flinging open the doors open and not enforcing anything at the border and allowing the humanitarian disaster to unfold that did, also really has hurt good immigrants. The very concept of immigration, as we understand it, has been tainted by this, horrific abuse of our immigration system. So if you're a Democrat and you care about hungry kids and you care about immigrants, the last 4 years, 4 years of Biden at least, have not been particularly good for you. And it's something to consider. Now, I'll tell you that Tim Walz, who as of yesterday is not running for re-election. Walz, who came close but no cigar to becoming vice president of the United States with Kamala Harris as president, had to slink his way back to Minneapolis following the November 2024 drubbing that he and Kamala received, and then once there, slipped right back into his usual criminal activity. At least I'm convinced of that. All of these are allegations as of now, but held a press conference today to explain, or he was asked why he dropped out of the race. Now, just let me tell you, as a lawyer, there's a couple of things. I'll play this clip. There's a couple of things that stand out to me I wonder if you'll catch them as well.
Did you make the decision to end your campaign by yourself, or did you receive pressure from Democratic allies?
This is a decision that I make and make with my family. And
my
certainly,
lawyer.
I think, as I said, it's the right decision. I'll note, I think it's appropriate we're here today. The war that's being waged against Minnesota, you're seeing it. We have a ridiculous surge of apparently 2,000 people not coordinating with us that are for a show of the cameras. I'm going to note to all of you, today is January 6th. There's no debate what happened. The President of the United States led an insurrection against a fair election to try and overturn that and, report both sides of this. Well, he said he really didn't, and courts convicted 400 of them, and he pardoned them. No, he did that. He did that, and that's today.
What stood out to you? What stood out to you? See, I'll tell you, there's a line here that really just went right through my ears and into the center, the core of my brain. So he gets asked about why did you decide, basically, did you decide why you were ending your campaign? Did you receive any pressure? And Walz says, first, I made this decision with my family. And he says it's the right decision. And he thinks it's appropriate that we're here today. And the very next sentence is, the war that's being waged against Minnesota, you're seeing it. We have a ridiculous surge of apparently 2,000 people. Now, I mentioned this yesterday on the program, that CBS News was breaking the story, now been confirmed, that both Department of Homeland Security and FBI agents, federal agents in the low thousands, were being dispatched to Minnesota by the Department of Justice. And they're conducting interviews. But the next part of the sentence really, really went right through me. And here's the part. Apparently 2,000 people not coordinating with us. Not coordinating with us. So Tim Walz here, okay, he is butthurt, if I can put it that way, that these federal agents that are investigating the fraud inside Minnesota are not coordinating with the state police, or not coordinating with agencies that are under the direct chain of command by the governor, from the governor. And they're, yes, Robbie, exactly. I guess Tim Walz is upset that the investigators aren't letting the suspect in on how their investigation is going. It's one of the first things he gets to. He gets to this little snip before he even gets to the, his prepared remarks on January 6th. Now, don't forget the president is an insurrectionist, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And my take on this is that the situation is much more dire inside Walz's world than you might even imagine. You could say, if you were to be punny and engage in a bit of dad humor, to say the walls are closing in. My sense is it's far worse than it is. So to all of you out there who are saying, well, when are the prosecutions going to happen? When is Pam Bondi going to get off her rump and finally do something? Dan Bongino left the FBI because he couldn't put up with her. Maybe. Okay, fine. But this is something big's going to go down. And you look at Tim Walz looks more scared and, more kind of puckered sphincter look on his face than usual. What do you say? He always has that look. He always looks like something got jabbed up there, but he just has that nervousness, okay? And I'm sensing it extra strong with this guy. When you do a deposition, when you interview somebody under oath, you question them on the stand as an attorney. You're the way they answer and how they order their information gives you a lot of insight into where they're at. I'm just saying that comment, but they're sending agents and they're not telling us anything. Well, that is a sign that there is panic Walzlandia. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Radio Network. Great to be with you as always. Hang tight through the break, folks. Buckle up. More to follow. Yeah, and you see that, yeah, Mark Kelly getting slapped by the military. Well, we'll get into all of this. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here, friends. Good to be with you on the What's Right Media Network. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. Now, let me tell you something about Sam and Ash Injury Law real fast here. I always say it is never a good idea to try to go against the insurance company on your own. And why is that? Because they're not there to help you. They won't help you. In fact, they're there to save money for themselves, and that will always happen at your expense. You know, the broke person that hit you and caused your life to go into turmoil, they're not going to lose anything, all right? But their insurance company that's on the hook to see to this getting made, right, is going to come in there. They're going to find any way to deny you the claim value that you deserve. And that even just goes down to taking care of your car. Right, you want to be upside down $3,000? Don't do that. Get some legal advice. Call Sam and Ash Injury Law today. 1-800-304-2000. 1-800-304-2000. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. All right, folks. Just quickly here, I heard this about Mark Kelly, Senator Kelly. He is senator from Arizona, and he got a letter of censure from the Pentagon. This is what it read in part. Now, you remember what this is all about, right? He went on every media network he could find to tell people in the military that it was okay to disobey orders. I've got the videos here. You remember this. He said, well, I'll tell you. He went on Kristen Welker's show, Meet the Press. And even Kristen Welker goes, well, wait a minute, calling the lawyers there in the military before you do anything, that's kind of a lot of burden to put on the troops, And Kelly said, it's a tremendous amount of burden on officers in the military, but that is their responsibility. They can figure it out. A reasonable person can tell something that is illegal and something that is legal. Now, all of this is coming to mind even before the letter of censure because of the highly successful intervention in Venezuela, where over the weekend, American special forces grabbed in under 90 minutes Nicolas Maduro and his wife. And, suspiciously absent from any reporting on this were the phone calls made internally by members of the armed forces calling the lawyers there in the military to decide if Trump's orders were lawful or not. I didn't hear anything about that. And, what Kelly did in all this, and again, other politicians did it too, but he is a retired officer and is still subject to the jurisdiction of the Pentagon. And so he got a letter of censure, and they go through it. They give, we get November 18th, 2025, you participated in and distributed a video. Don't give up the ship. You identified yourself as a captain in the U.S. Navy. You said you wanted to speak directly to members of the military. I put all these quotes in there, right? And it basically was undermining the chain of command. So, so basically what this is I think they've docked him some pay, and there's a reduction in pay and reduction in grade that is being recommended. So it would, basically be a demotion. Next time he runs for office, he could be Senator Mark Kelly, formally named captain. Okay, I'm just throwing this out there because this is the new administration that we have. This is the Trump administration of I don't give an F anymore about what people say. We're going to do it right. We're going to hold people accountable and moving on. And everybody's reacted to this. People in the media. Oh, it's petty. Gerardo Rivera. Yeah, Geraldo got involved in it. You go, oh, this is petty. What Mark Kelly and everybody in that video was doing was very dangerous. What they were doing actually wasn't petty. It was intended to weaken Trump's control over our military. And if I have to be honest, in the past year, and we are coming up in a couple weeks here, we are coming up to 2 years of the second presidency of Donaldus Maximus, and it'll be a reflection point. And I look back at these 12 months, and I think this is many examples of a very solid use of our military, and that have delivered successes for the U.S. and by extension successes for Trump. And I could see why the Democrats are PO'd about it. Of course they're upset because Trump is doing with the military in 1 year that Biden couldn't achieve in 4. And beside making our military a laughingstock in the last administration, also did everything to undermine it internally as an institution and weaken it by design, right? Intent there was to co-opt the military and make it an extension of the sort of the woke government as a whole, right? That Democrats rely on to stay in power. So I don't feel badly at all for Senator Kelly. Plus, he looks weird. He didn't really say this. Whenever he's on there, bulging eyes. I'm losing my hair too. Thank you for noticing. But he's got the bald head and the big eyes, and he's always so sanctimonious. He's such a smug guy. So that's fine. That's okay. Yeah. Well, more states. I know this. I know it's not just Minnesota. Minnesota is where the dam broke, though. That's why Minnesota, the fraud there was so open and egregious, and the Democrats were so certain of the fact that they were going to get away with it because, of course, they had cover. They had cover because it was immigrant communities of a certain color that were participating in the fraud. And, if you're in polite society, you don't call out immigrants and people of color and Muslims for doing bad things, because then, of course, you're xenophobic and Islamophobic and a racist. Don't forget, and this is just came out today, Fox News went in and looked at everybody that's been charged with felony fraud in Minnesota in the last 4 years, since 22. Almost 90, it was like 89 something. 90% of the people charged with felony fraud in Minnesota since 2022 were Somali. But Sam, it's not all of them that are doing it. I know, you're right. All is a big number. All is 100%. But let that sink in. So, well, this is another question. What percentage of the Minnesota population are the Somalis? Because I guess there's nothing peculiar if 90% of Minnesota is Somali, which sometimes you almost think it is based on the reporting. But anyway, it's not. What percentage of Minnesota are Somali? You know the number? It's 2%. Less than 2%. So less than 2% of the people in Minnesota are 90% of the people that have been charged with felony fraud. And why is it? Is it because they're from Somalia? Yes, it's because they're from Somalia, because Somalia is a broken country that is in its culture is what can you steal for yourself? It's every man, every family, every clan for himself, themselves. And so when you import that kind of culture into the U.S., what do you get? Well, surprise. But it's worked out great for their patrons in the government, right? So the dam is breaking in Minnesota because it was so egregious there. But the beautiful thing about it is you start pulling on that thread, right? It's like a sweater. You start pulling on the thread and you keep going. And pretty soon the entire thing's going to unravel. There's been another indictment announced in Boston. This is EBT fraud, basically an empty store that has charged, I forget the number. I don't have the story here in front of me, but they some astronomical number, hundreds of thousands of dollars over time has been charged, maybe millions through the store. And it's basically an empty bodega. So the FBI went out there. Investigators go out there, right? This time it's not Nick Shirley with his camera. It's literally, agents, federal agents. They go and they find that the store that's, charging all of this money to the government for food stamps, right? EBT, doesn't have any real goods. So what are they doing? They're just running people's EBT cards and giving them a refund in cash and taking the profits. I mean, that's basically loosely how this works. And they never have to go through and actually, buy goods and stock goods and run a business. Their only commercial purpose is in defrauding the government. And the miserable thing about it is, for all of you out there saying, well, you've got more arrests. It's one investigation. Do you know how many of these bodegas are out there? And that's why my answer to this is cut it, make it so much more difficult to get the benefit. I think that's the answer. The people that really need it will get it. But if we continue, and this is why you will see a concerted effort among Democrats. Susie Lee today here in Nevada, many other Democrats across the country echoing similar sentiments, saying we need more funding for childcare. Because they know they can sit in two chairs, be in two places on the issue at the same time and not miss a beat. The Democrats know they can't take a public position supporting fraud. I mean, that's absurd, right? So the next best thing is they say, well, we've got to investigate the fraud, but let's keep funding it over here, knowing only a handful of the fraudsters will be apprehended and brought to justice. The rest of them will keep on continuing and will keep supporting financially and politically the people that allow this gravy train to continue. Read the Democrats. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Back in a moment. All right. Yes, I know. I'm going to get to all of it. Don't worry, Robbie. He always gets nervous this time in the program. We got stuff to get to, Sam. All right. Sam Mirejovsky here, the What's Right Media Network, the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. You know what I haven't done today yet? Maybe you could keep me on task here. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. There. Wasn't so hard. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. That's the email. @whatsrightsam on X. I just posted a dank meme a few minutes ago. Let me take a peek here. Are you guys on X? My friend Ed is on X. If Ed can be on X, and Ed, don't take this the wrong way, but if he can be on X, so can you. I'm not going to tell you what it is that I posted because this is just between those of us that are online. Okay. But it's great. It's got Trump, it's got Biden, it's got Obama, and it's got a terrorist. There. That's all I'm going to tell you about it. Go to @whatsrightsam to see what I posted. Be sure to click on it to expand it. It's longer than it will show in the little window. So today, marks 5 years since January 6th, but there's a separate holiday that I think, well, it's a big day in Democrat mythology. January 5th. I mean, it is. It is. It's in the Democrats' Articles of Faith. Trump is an insurrectionist. Okay. I was going to get to the other holiday. Before I get to the other holiday to celebrate, for those of you in the back, those of you not catching up to this, let me tell you my perspective, my real perspective on January 6th. 99% of the people that went to the Capitol went and were law-abiding and peaceful and really are guilty of nothing more than a criminal trespass at worst, okay? And many of those people, by the way, were sacrificed at the altar of the Democrats' great lie and were put through a hell for which this country owes them not just a pardon, but an apology. Now, I am convinced there were a handful of actual real pro-Trump people that acted like a-holes and that got out of hand. I'm convinced of that. How many? But I'm also absolutely, beyond any doubt, convinced that there were paid actors, maybe even people recruited via Antifa and other organizations like them, to come and dress as Trump supporters and to whip up the crowd and to cause a scene. And I've been saying this now for 5 years. Trump was pretty stupid in organizing the rally the way he did because he sort of fell into a government trap. And that is today the extent of criticism that I have for him. And when I saw this on TV, I was appalled. It was horrible. I had a strong reaction to it at the time. The more I've learned since, the more I've realized that the fix was on. So that's my January, just so we all understand each other where I'm coming from on this. Well, and look, and it's all but been admitted, and Kash Patel has come out. There have to be arrests here. The people that orchestrated it, the people that were behind the scene. I mean, to the extent that Chris Wray was involved, while the FBI director, while reporting to the president of the United States, Donald Trump, and undercutting the chain of command. It's just, these people are so vile to me. So that's hopefully something that happens. So here's the other holiday that we celebrate. Today marks the 1-year anniversary when Kamala Harris became the first black woman in U.S. history to certify her own presidential election loss. That's right. Kamala Harris went to the Hill. She had to serve, because she was vice president at the time, as the president pro tem of the Senate, and presided over the Senate when Donaldus Maximus was certified the winner of the 2024 election. That happened 1 year ago today. So, yeah, well, there we go. You see the story, by the way, of the Minnesota Hilton that was banning Department of Homeland Security agents, ICE agents. There was a hotel. That's right. There was a Hilton hotel that was refusing any bookings by ICE. And remember, we've got that big invasion, as Tim Walz called it, that isn't coordinating with him and the rest of the state government, of federal officers going into the state. And these people need to sleep somewhere because they're going to be there a while, is my guess. So they go up to this Hilton, and the federal government has a contract with Hilton. And so they go in to get a block of rooms, and they get denied. Well, obviously, this resulted in a complaint to Hilton headquarters. Hilton investigated. They contacted the franchisee, because this hotel is an independently owned property, and the franchisee apparently told some fibs about it, denied it happening, which is a bad move. And now the news this morning was that Hilton dumped the franchisee from its system. So basically, you own a building, you own a hotel, you can put the Hilton sign up and Hilton gets a cut of your profit, and they, that's how these things operate. Now they can't be a Hilton, and I doubt they're going to be a Marriott or any other company that wants to get government business. So the owner of this property, guess this is the price for Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, now is definitely SOL, I think is the legal term. All right, folks, we got to run here, top of the hour. One more hour of the What's Right show after the break. Catch up on Venezuela. What's been going on there? Who's going to be running the place? So many of you have emailed me about this. Sam, is it true? Is Marco Rubio going to be the viceroy of Venezuela? Ooh, let's talk about it. Don't go anywhere. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Yep, now they're just talking about Greenland all the time. Listening to the news here at the top of the hour. Wow, I'll tell you about that too in just a moment. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, truth teller, and friend to all. Good to be with you folks. Happy Tuesday, January 6th. Yes, for those that celebrate the great myth of the Democratic Party, when the insurrectionists framed Donald Trump for an insurrection, otherwise known as Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email, at what'srightsam on X. All right. Well, the Greenland thing. Listen, Viktor Orban, who is the right-wing, and by the way, may I say, fantastic leader of Hungary, great ally of President Trump, got asked about this yesterday. And Orban is this, what do you think? He's probably like 70, 65. Got a lot of gravitas. And Orban just kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, the question of Greenland is simple. Greenland is a territory of Denmark. Denmark is in NATO. America is part of NATO. This is an internal issue that will get solved among allies. And anybody else suggesting anything else is leading you on. Marco Rubio said, no, it's not a military thing. We'll end up paying Denmark for it or working it out, whatever it is. But I want to come back to, I made this point yesterday and I made it this morning on Alan Stock, this idea about international law. Because of course the situation in Venezuela remains fluid, and the criticism you're hearing nonstop from the people on the left, the anti-Trump people, no matter what Trump does, Trump is going to do it wrong, right? If you've got TDS. And so what they're criticizing, this whole action, the events over the weekend, is a violation of international law. And I also heard in that same vein, I heard a pro-China, get myself comfortable in the chair here. Second hour, I always get a little antsy. Well, I don't like to sit for very long. That's the problem of doing radio for 2 hours. You're just in the chair for so long. I may do this show at some point, folks, standing up. I've thought about that too. Well, anyway, I was listening to this pro-China channel. So these are somebody, a well-known person who is a shill for the Chinese Communist Party. And this person was saying, you Americans, you think it's going to be so easy to just, boot China from your country. You think it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all because China has contracts with Venezuela. And remember yesterday when I told you about China's Belt and Road Initiative? This is they go around the world and they basically lend money to smaller countries, financially strapped countries, and take as collateral important infrastructure. And the collateral that the Chinese may well have taken in Venezuela, and I don't want to give an opinion on this because I don't know, but I would assume one of the collateral, big items of collateral would be their reserve crude barrels, right? And so this person basically said, well, China's just going to show up and sue. China is going to show up and sue. And I go, God, the Chinese communists are as dumb as the American communists. Now, I'm putting on my lawyer hat here. All right, you go and sue. Where is China going to go and sue? Is China going to go into federal court in the U.S. and sue Venezuela for performance under some agreement that now the Americans are telling Venezuela not to fulfill? Because let's say there is. This is an important. It's an interesting question, right? What? Oh, so China would have to go invade. They would have to send their military to enforce their law. They're not going to go to the international court. I know this is great. This is when you talk to people who are university college educated. Of course, I'm college educated. Many of you are college educated. But where there's no practical experience. And you go, but they're going to go. It's international law. Same, the International Criminal Court, again, for the umpteenth time, the International Criminal Court doesn't have any way to enforce anything. They can issue a warrant and they can rely on the country that has jurisdiction over the subjects of that warrant to do their dirty work, so to speak. But they can't do any of it themselves. So China's going to, here's what's going to happen. Right, so right now the situation is that the president of Venezuela is a former vice president. And her name is Delcy Rodriguez. She was Maduro's VP. She was his oil minister and described by many as a key and critical ally. She was sworn in yesterday, January 5th. The Supreme Court did an emergency swearing in. Then a parliamentary session was held, and she is now running the government. And the Trump people are approaching this, I think, exactly correctly. They're like, look, it's basically our country now. She either does what we say, or we're going to do something, as Trump put it, worse to her perhaps than even what happened to Nicolas Maduro. So we are governing via coercion, forced coercion. This is not something that the left is particularly happy about, but I'm loving it because we let them run their government and do their thing, but they have to listen to us. Notice we don't have any, to my knowledge, any significant boots on the ground at this point. So we're seeing how that works, but part of the entire, the purpose of all of this is to push Iran, Cuba, Russia, China out of the country. And the Chi-Coms are out there going, well, we're going to sue. We're going to sue. And I'm like, who are you going to sue? Yeah. The only country that's going around enforcing warrants issued by its courts is the U.S. Now, anyway, point is, international law is only as valid, really valid, as strong as whatever enforcement mechanism is behind it. And I'll tell you, interestingly enough, you can look to blue cities and blue states in America to show an example of this. If you have laws on the books, like they do in California, thou shalt not crap on public sidewalks as a human being. There's indecency laws and that kind of thing, right? But people do it. They allow the homeless to run around, and I don't want to say the word that will get me fined, but you know what I want to say, right? I want to say the S word. They allow a homeless to run around unfettered, essing on sidewalks. Okay? And because they don't enforce the law against it, it happens. The law isn't worth the paper it's written on without the enforcement mechanism behind it. It's against the law to steal, isn't it? Every state in the country, and yet people steal more in certain places than others. Why? Is it more legal there? Not exactly. It just, the enforcement is for political purposes, withheld. These are the arguments you need to make when you talk to people about this. Oh, international law. Yeah, okay. Huh. What is it worth? Not a whole lot. If you go back, well, frankly, the entire post-war era. My parents' country in 1968, the Russians, the Ruskies, communists from Moscow sent Russian troops reinvade a country that was, ostensibly independent. Think international law stopped that? You think the UN was able to block that from happening? Get out of here. Sam Mirejovsky on the What's Right Media Network. Be right back.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Terrible news out of California. Just seeing this, although it happened earlier today, Republican Congressman Doug LaMalfa died. Oh my gosh, 65 years old. They're describing it as a sudden and unexpected death. He was a popular Republican. And of course, what this means is the House is already, Republicans have a razor-thin majority, 218 Republicans to 213. So this further trims that down. Another Indiana Republican from Indiana, apparently Jim Baird, who's 80, has been hospitalized after a car accident. It's just not good. All right. I'm just letting you know what's going on. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. And Sam at what'srightshow.com. Need to say that more often because I didn't almost the entirety of the first hour. So they're making faces at me. Sam at what'srightshow.com. Last night, I was at home. A wife was getting some dinner ready, and I was just scouring the X and other sources that I follow for news, and I saw that there was some pretty significant gunfire around the presidential palace in Caracas, which is the capital of Venezuela. So the Miraflores Palace, that is their White House. Presumably after the daring raid over the weekend, the current president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, is not living inside the presidential palace, but in some undisclosed bunker. Okay? So I don't know what that was all about, but I think the people inside the country and the power structure are very nervous. Someone or some persons close to Maduro gave him up. They ratted him out to the CIA, okay, to the U.S. There isn't a lot of trust here. Do you remember when one of the governors of Venezuela, yes, who was an ally of Maduro's, was shown having a holiday meal with his family, and eagle-eyed observers noticed the food was fake. It was plastic food. So here's somebody who had, presumably a fairly important position in the government, someone who was close to the power structure in the country. And to show off, a fancy feast at their house, they used, like Fisher Price food. I don't know if it was food, but it was plastic. You could tell, and the family was sitting around. They looked pained. It was all stunty. Well, what my point is this. What kind of loyalty is inside a government where even the top people aren't doing so hot? Look at Kim Jong-un. Look at North Korea. The rocket man has to go and basically mortar an uncle every once in a while. Well, he did that to one of his uncles. He literally dropped an anti-aircraft mortar on him. just to kind of let the word out that you better stay loyal and keep in line or else. But there's not a lot of loyalty if they can't even feed their families. The paranoia this is it. This is the beauty of it. The paranoia is now going to undo this government. We don't need boots on the ground. Let them fight it out amongst each other. And maybe there's some other strong man that's going to come in but he's going to go, all right, let's see. Russia, did they come to the help of Maduro? No. The Chinese were literally in the building meeting with Maduro when the Americans showed up. The Chinese were like, see ya. Wait, Iranian Islamic Republic is not going to be around this time next week, possibly. Okay. I mean, there's a full-flung revolution going on there. Hezbollah, I don't know if you've noticed, but most of those guys are waddling around on stumps. So the guy's going to go, all right, life could be pretty good for me. I just have to do what the U.S. wants me to do. I'll dance with the U.S. I'll do it. Yeah, fine. They're going to help me say screw you to China and their ridiculous debts that they claim that we owe under international law. Fine by me. A lot of people are wondering, why didn't the opposition leader, the gal that got the award, right? Maria Corina Machado is her name. Why didn't she get put in, right? I mean, after all, she got a Nobel Peace Prize. Remember, the Nobel Peace people love to give prizes before anything actually happens. She got a Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts to topple the Venezuelan regime, and she dedicated the prize to Donald Trump. Many have said to flatter his ego and to put her in his good graces should a military intervention in Venezuela occur. So why didn't she get the gig? And Trump said something in the press conference. Trump sometimes reveals more than he should. And I know he thinks he's holding stuff back, but it was one particular moment there where Trump said, we just don't have a high level of confidence that she's could have control over the government. And it means, and I later found out from trusted sources, that there had been some back channel communications for a number of years, months, since the U.S. decided they were maybe going to make this move, and they were talking to her and saying, what contacts do you have in the military? Do you have anybody in the military that could be loyal to you or with whom you have a working relationship, who would like to see you and your allies be at the head of the government? And the answers they got back were pretty vague, which didn't inspire a lot of confidence in the Trump people that they could, by doing a decapitation strike, taking out Maduro, putting her in would keep the continuity of government. This is how you want our government to think, not we're going to roll in there, a la George Bush, Dick Cheney, Don Rumsfeld, roll into Baghdad, imprison or hang all the Baathists, and then, hope we can still run the country. The whole thing devolved into an absolute mess. By the way, Marco Rubio keeps saying this, and he's absolutely right. He keeps saying how Venezuela is not like Iraq, and it's not like Syria, and it's definitely not like Libya. And he explains it. And do you know why? There's a critical difference here. And I'll tell you, because Venezuela, for all of its faults, remember, has been taken over by communists for 25 years. That has a way of robbing a country of tremendous potential. These are still people that are very much like us. These are Western traditions. They have a parliamentary democracy, that of course has been hijacked by totalitarians, but it was all there. These institutions exist. It's a Western culture that has much more in common with our Western traditions than Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan, I forgot him, and Libya put together. So these are important things. Now, question for you. What do you think the poll numbers are on this? Because a lot of people said, oh, this move by Trump, this is not going to be popular. He's alienating the Make America Great Again people, America First folks, and at the same time, of course, pissing off all the centrists and left of center people. So what is this going to do? Let's look at some of those numbers when we come back. I think it's interesting. And frankly, what I think in line with what I expected. And I'll explain when I come back. Sam Mirejovsky here. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. At What's Right Sam on X. Follow me on X for all of the latest musings off the top of my head. I guarantee you will be entertained. Back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Boy, more terrible news today, Robbie. I just learned that Michael Reagan passed away. This just got announced. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Michael Reagan, of course, longtime author, commentator, and adopted son of Ronald Reagan and his first wife, Jane Wyman, right? I think that was her name. She, they adopted him, and Michael was the only kid, I think, of Ronald Reagan that wasn't completely nuts. Right? I mean, well, the I guess the biological kids that Ronald Reagan had, they were all leftists. So I just texted Alan Stock because I know they knew each other and he hadn't heard this news. So I'm sorry, Alan, to day before your birthday to be the bearer of bad news. Welcome to the program, folks. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. A quick word, folks, about what I do in my day job. I appreciate your support. When you support Sam & Ash Injury Law, you support this program. I don't get paid for doing this. I do it from the bottom of my heart. I take, 2, 3, 4 hours of my day sometimes to bring you this program. And many of you are calling and referring your friends and family to Sam & Ash Injury Law. And I just wanted to appreciate that, express my appreciation for that here today. And to tell you genuinely, you do not want to go at an accident alone. And even I've shared this from time to time, but I'll do it again. Even when I've gotten into a fender bender, somebody's clipped me, I turn it over to somebody in my office. I don't handle it myself. Why? Because I know that I trust the system. There's a right way of doing it, and I have to be separated from it. I don't want to make representations to the person in the first, and say, I need this, I want somebody else to speak for me. But let me tell you, I know what I'm doing and I understand every aspect of this business, but if you don't, you're going to get taken advantage of. And even if you're not at fault, you will end up losing thousands of dollars. I guarantee that. So don't do that. Don't get taken advantage of. Hire Sam & Ash Injury Law on your side. 800-304-2000, offices in Nevada and California. 800-304-2000, because you deserve what's right. Poll numbers for Trump following the invasion over the weekend, if we can call it that, the slick operation where they bagged Maduro in under 90 minutes, together with his wife, the First Lady of Venezuela, / partner in crime. The First Lady isn't just a wife. Yeah, she's kind of like a Hillary Clinton type. And she was a lawyer for Hugo Chavez. I didn't know that, actually. She was a lawyer for Hugo Chavez, very close to Hugo Chavez. I don't know how close, but they were described as being close. The imagination does wonder. Anyway, she and Maduro get whisked off to New York City, and what's the public response to this? Well, CNN today ran the numbers. Harry Enton reports as follows.
Yeah, it's been a dramatic change in a direction that I think the President of the United States will like, because what are we looking at here? Okay, U.S. military ousting Maduro. Pre-ousting, what you saw was the clear plurality of Americans opposed at 47%, just 21% support. Come over to this side of the screen. After the ousting, look at that. The support through the roof. Now we're talking about 37%, well within the margin of error right here of the opposition, 38%. It turns out Americans like what they deem to be successful foreign policy operations. And in this case, they view the ousting of Maduro, at least up to this point, as a successful one, and therefore the support way up.
There it is. We're really fair weather support people here in America. If it goes well, 2 thumbs up. If it doesn't, well, yeah, we're not happy about it. Harrington continues with some other polling on this.
What have we learned over time? It turns out that Americans like success. That is what they like in foreign policy. They like success. And it's not just so far in Venezuela. We can go back to those Iran strikes right in the middle of last year. And take a look here. Net approval for the U.S. airstrikes on those Iran nuclear facilities. In June, the net approval rating was -9 points. But by July, it was +4 points. So I think the 2 major U.S. operations overseas militarily, those airstrikes on Iran, and so far what we're seeing in Venezuela, both of those, the American people were quite skeptical at first, and then came much more around to Donald Trump's point of view once the military took action.
Yeah, obviously, these things can change again depending on conditions inside those countries, but where things stand now, very notable.
You can see why Tim Walz's sphincter is so puckered. Not only is Trump sending an invasionary force into his home state of Minnesota, and Tim Walz has to drop out of the race because, well, you know, he's going to have to focus on his criminal defense in a soon-to-be pending federal action. But because everything Donald Trump does is popular for the most part, right? This is why the Dems are at pains to explain away this Venezuela thing. They're at pains to paint this negatively any way they can, because the only thing they reflexively know how to do is to fight Donald Trump. I always say it's very simple when it comes to Democrats. They don't believe in anything, actually. They believe in having political power. That's why they are capable of holding 2 completely opposite opinions or policy positions, right? Months apart. If Trump does something and it's likely to make him popular, we're going to fight against it and try to explain to people why they shouldn't follow Trump because of it. And, I give you, look, this was CNN. There's a whole lot of these that I could play. So I'm just kind of picking and choosing a few here and there. But Bakari Sellers, he's on Abby Phillip, and, he's actually, here's what he said about this. He said he's not a Trump person, and even he doesn't really quite know how to get his footing on
I'm
this.
tired of the president of the United States. He chooses Caracas over rural health hospitals, right? He chooses Venezuelans over soybean farmers.
So
he chooses everybody else over Americans.
Did you oppose the Biden administration putting a bounty on Maduro's head as well?
No, Maduro's a horrible person. He needs to be shackled.
So Trump just acted on it. Exactly. What do you mean that you approve of Biden putting the bounty on his head, but not of Trump actually going out and arresting the guy?
He's a horrible person, but Trump needs to worry about soybeans. You know what's crazy? You know how many people work in the White House? You know how vast the federal government is even after the Elon Musk trimmings? Do you know, Bakari, that the president can do 2 things at once? See, the thing is, under Biden actually couldn't do 1 thing at once. That's the problem that the Democrats have. They're just seeing it. They're seeing it through the Joe Biden glasses. Look, Biden put a bounty on his head. Trump did too. Meaning, on Venezuelan President Maduro's head. And if Biden had to pay it, the bounty? Would that be like, are we choosing rural health over paying the bounty? No. Ana Navarro, you know who she is. She is she used to be a Republican, but she lives in Florida, and she's not a fan of communism, all right? She's got a family history there. So she, on The View, they were trying to get at Trump, and Ana Navarro, who hates Trump, couldn't get anywhere near in giving them an inch. She gave him a little bit. Listen.
Your question, who voted for this? The people in South Florida. The Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community, the Nicaraguan American community voted for this. And for us, this is a very, very happy day when we see a dictator who has been part of oppressing and abusing the Venezuelan people for 25 years, when we see him in handcuffs and held to some sort of accountability. It brought me into tears. It brought me great joy. And, I live in South Florida.
But are you okay with the way that it was done?
But you can, I think both things can be true.
Okay.
I think you can criticize and ask questions and have concerns about the way it was done and what this means in the future.
Right.
And I think you can still celebrate that this murderous, corrupt, sadistic son of a is out of Venezuela. Because he has... I think there's 8 million Venezuelan exiles all over the world. People have fled from this man's tyrannical rule.
I agree. Oh, well, you can separate whatever. Separate what? She has no qualms whatsoever about the result and even about the methodology. What are you going to say about the methodology? Well, how would this have been done any better? Did we lose any equipment or any men? No. So what's the problem? These people just want to kvetch about Trump. Did any of you, I'm going to ask a question now. You don't need to all answer me at once, but I'm just going to ask the question. When Barack Obama took out Osama bin Laden, meaning when we found out and it was announced that Osama bin Laden was dead, that he'd been dispatched by a bullet to the head, so were any of you complaining about, was anybody unhappy about that? No. Did we like Obama? No. But, the guy he did good that day. I don't remember. Robbie, maybe I have selective memory. You tell me in the break if you think if I'm missing something. But as I recall, we were all elated, begrudging, knucks to Obama. He liked to give the knuckles. He never really was a handshake guy. Above that and all. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Back in a moment. Well, I was joking yesterday about regime change, right? People saying that Trump ought to have pursued a more aggressive attack of regime change in Venezuela. And my quip about it was that, perhaps just maybe we should be focusing on regime change at home in places like New York City. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Now, the stuff that is going to be coming out of the Mamdani administration I'm telling you, it is communist comedy gold. It's looked out. They're going to burn the city to the ground, but I'm not celebrating that, but I'm just letting you know it's going to get real ugly. Mentioned yesterday, Sia Weaver. Sia Weaver is a young lady, a activist lady who's been on the scene for some time. She is going to be the head of the Office to Protect Tenants. And it's described on the New York City website as a central coordinating body to defend tenants' rights, stand up to landlords, and ensure city agencies act swiftly on behalf of renters who face unsafe or illegal conditions. She has scrubbed her X account, so she basically deleted all her past posts when this announcement was made. But a number of enterprising individuals have preserved her posts for all of posterity. Back in 2018, Ms. Weaver wrote, "There is no such thing as a good gentrifier. Only people who are actively working on projects to dismantle white supremacy and capitalism, and people who aren't." Huh. That's nice. In May of 22, Ms. Weaver wrote, "Instead of blaming folks for not having access to a mortgage in a rich neighborhood and all that comes with that, we could tax the rich, invest in the public good, stop all evictions, and fund safe, stable public housing for everyone." Let me play a clip. Let me play this clip. Boy. Listen to this. It's so bad. This is her a year ago, not even a year ago, in March of, 2 years ago, March of 24, almost 2 years ago. And she is here talking about how basically the city should organize tenants against landlords, make it so that property can be seized. And let me play the clip. I can give you my legal and, of course, political analysis of it. But this, I would take this seriously. Honestly, this is frightening stuff.
In some cases, yes, I think we're imagining that the city, that the Social Housing Development Authority would pay a market transaction for that building. But there's all sorts of things that organized tenants can do to drive down that market price, especially if, we have strong rent controls, we are discouraging speculation through other public policy. Tenants are suing the landlord. So this case is like the building is less attractive to other market participants because, there's a lot of liability associated with the lawsuit. And so there's things that organized tenants can do to sort of make a deal more possible. And that's the kind of organizing that is going to have to happen in order to make the SHDA live up to the vision.
Wow. Can I translate this? Okay. The Social Housing Development Authority, the government, is going to organize tenants to destroy the value of property, either through vandalism, through not paying rent, which destroys the value of the property because the income isn't being generated, so it makes the property less bankable, hence less valuable, to, create noise, to create blight. All right? They are going to organize tenants to actively undermine the value of the property, to drive down the price of the property so that when the government comes in and says, we're going to take this property, and of course, if you know the Constitution, you can take property, eminent domain, for public use. It's a lot broader than you would think. So there could be a basis. Hey, we're going to take this apartment building because we really need it for public housing. Okay. And the landlord's going to go, but constitutionally, I deserve just compensation. Well, what's the market rate? The government has just conspired with the people living in the building to do everything possible to drive down the value of the property. These people are so unbelievably evil. I'm at a loss for words. But that's what we have here. That's what this is. It's absolutely diabolical. Well, I'm letting you know. That's their plan. Now, Mamdani, for his part, has his fair share of idiotic statements, including this one yesterday at a press conference in New York City. He was talking about tickets to the World Cup Yep, and that's how in the details we're going to be in New York for the foreseeable future.
I had a New Yorker the other day come up to me and ask me if there was any way I could help him get World Cup tickets, because he was saying that the cost that he saw for a game was $600, right? This is increasingly out of reach. We have made what used to be a working class game into a luxury experience. And there are too many for whom it doesn't matter where the World Cup is being played in the world. They know where they're going to watch it. It's TV. And we want to ensure that there are more experiences available to each and every New Yorker.
I mean, is this, what is this? You know, the crux of socialism is that it denies scarcity. There are a finite number of seats in a stadium by definition, right? I mean, yeah. So when there is demand for an event like that, and by the way, it's not local demand, it is international demand. How do you see to it that those tickets are divided up fairly? Well, in a capitalist system, it's sorted out by cost, right? I mean, it's just like, it's a denial of reality. I don't even know how he can solve this problem. Maybe he can confiscate the stadium and give away tickets for the first 1,000 people in line. Who knows? All right, folks, I got to run. That's the music. Top of the hour here. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay? Be well.